To today's webinar, Optimizing Recurring Revenue, Best Practices for Transition, Survival, and Growth. My name is Kimberly Odom, and I'll be your host today. This is one of my absolute favorite topics to speak on. I've spent my entire career working with recurring revenue models, starting out in the telecom space and working for ISPs before spending this past several years in the cloud enterprise software industry. And here at NetSuite, for the past 3 years, my sole focus has been leading NetSuite's marketing efforts targeting the software industry. Today, I'm joined by two guest speakers. First is Amy Connery, Research Vice President with IDC, focusing on software pricing, licensing, provisioning, and delivery. In this role, Ms. Connery is responsible for providing coverage of software go-to-market trends, including license model evolution, global pricing management, and licensing technologies. In her coverage of these areas, Ms. Connery has been instrumental in forecasting future market size and growth. She was also the lead analyst for IDC's coverage of the software as a service space for 8 years prior to focusing exclusively on pricing, licensing, and delivery. She has authored award-winning research on many elements of software prices and licensing, and is a frequent speaker at high-level industry events and seminars around the world. Today, she'll be sharing some of her most recent research, and I know this will be quite beneficial for our audience. Our second guest speaker is Todd Graber, the CFO at cloud-based wealth management platform leader, Innovest. He has close to 20 years of experience in the finance and technology sectors, and prior to joining Innovest, Mr. Graber was the CFO for OTC Markets Group. He also served as CFO for QuadraServe Incorporated and was the corporate controller for LeBranch & Company, where he was instrumental in the company's initial public offering. A CPA, Mr. Graber held roles previously at Lehman Brothers and Arthur Andersen. So let's take a quick look at today's agenda. First, we're going to start hearing from our guest speaker at IDC about the subscription business model maturity. Then we'll move into hearing about how one company is optimizing recurring revenue, and Todd's going to share his experiences at Innovest. And then at the end, I'll be coming back and speaking specifically about the best practices that we use here at NetSuite to run our own recurring revenue business. And with that, it's my pleasure to turn the speaker over to Amy Connery of IDC.
Thank you very much, Kim, and thank you everyone for your time this morning. Like Kim, this is one of my very favorite topics to speak about. I've been, as Kim mentioned, launched and ran our software as a service practice for many years. Of course, recurring revenue and subscription business models are very, very closely related to that topic. And then in the work that I've been doing, focusing on pricing and licensing across all types of software, subscription has really been one of the main topics that I've been looking at. And one of the reasons why I feel that this topic doesn't necessarily go away, even as people become more familiar with approaches like software as a service and like subscription approaches, is that the subscription business model is very difficult to get right. It's a difficult model to run. It's a difficult model to execute on, particularly if you are coming to subscription from the perspective of a business that perhaps sold things in an upfront model. So that whole transition from an upfront model in the software world, the perpetual license model, to a subscription-based approach can be very challenging for folks. And so I spent a lot of my time looking both at companies that have made this transition, as well as companies that really landed from day one within a subscription approach, and trying to help them move their approaches along, to help them mature their approaches over time. And so what I want to share with you in the few minutes that I have to speak is some of the work that we've been doing looking at subscription business model maturity, where we see companies going, and how you, no matter where you might be in any stage of your subscription business model maturity, can take your subscription business to the next level. So one of the most basic things about subscription that make it difficult, I think, and particularly in today's world, is that instead of a shopping cart mentality, the mentality that we're probably all fairly familiar with, particularly if we're either A, consumers, or B, came from a world where upfront sales was the norm, the idea is to get people to put as many things as in their shopping carts as they can, to get them to purchase those items. Once they leave, you hope that they have success with those items. You hope they come and visit the store again, maybe if they need some complementary products and services, but you can kind of check the box that, I sold them a hammer, wrench, and a screwdriver today. That was a good day. With subscription, the idea is to move away from the idea of a shopping cart mentality and more toward a life cycle of an experience. And what do I mean by that? When you sign the subscription contract as a consumer of a subscription service, that's really the beginning of a relationship. I'm going to enter into a relationship with you, and let's use this tool mentality. And what I really need right now is a hammer. Maybe previously I would have bought a hammer, a screwdriver, and a wrench because they were all bundled together on the same shelf in the store. And I thought, conceivably I might need a wrench a month from now, or I might need a screwdriver next week. But within the subscription world, we typically see people buying just what they need at the time. Kind of more of an open-ended type of a relationship or an agreement. So I'm going to get the hammer. I'm going to hammer the nail. I hope that I'm successful with it. And then furthermore, if I am successful with it, if I have a great experience, I'll probably tell people about it. And that will then ultimately lead to me buying either more hammers or continuing to use the hammer, the nail service that I'd purchased before. And hopefully I will maybe incite my friends to sign up for that service as well. So it's a complete life cycle. That's very different from the shopping cart mentality. Now, of course, in the shopping cart world, you don't want to never see your customer again after they leave the store. But within the subscription world, not only do you hope you'll see your customer again and again, but the way that they buy from you is typically very different. They're buying in smaller increments. They're buying what they need. Maybe they don't need to subscribe to the hammer service after a period of time. Maybe they'll upgrade to something else, but maybe they'll move over to more of a nail puller outer service or some other related service that reflects the evolution of that customer's experiences with your products and services. So that whole idea of a life cycle, that whole idea of customer needs changing over time and being flexible enough to support that, that is not a simple proposition to execute on from a company perspective, not from an operations perspective, certainly not from a culture perspective, especially if you're coming from that shopping cart world, and also from a customer experience management perspective. When the customer is leaving my store with all of the tools, I hope that they're successful, but there's not as much perhaps vested interest. Whereas with the subscription, you absolutely need them to be successful because you want them to continue to make that decision, continuous decision to use the offering that you have. You want them to tell their friends about it. You need them to expand that relationship with you over time. And so you have to institute more processes, more services, more products around making sure that customer is successful than you perhaps would have had to in a shopping cart world. Now, that's all kind of esoteric. Let's talk a little bit more about these concepts within the framework of a maturity type model. So as I mentioned, I've been working on a maturity model that breaks down subscription business model execution and success in many, many dimensions. But for the purposes of today's webinar, we'll just kind of talk about 5 different stages and some of the key elements of each of those stages. And then I'll talk a bit about how you can be successful in moving the needle with your subscription business over some different time frames in the future. So, the first off, within subscription business models, we see and experience is the idea of this Wild West approach, or ad hoc, as it's called within the framework. The focus for many companies when they just launch a subscription service, whether it's a standalone business, pure play subscription, or maybe a subscription unit within a larger business, is let's just get as many customers to sign up as we possibly can. So to a degree, it's Wild West in that, sales is cutting deals the way they're cutting deals. There's promotions going on. The focus is really trying to, how can we show that we've got a large number of people interested enough in this to sign up? So I think that first picture there, I'm signing a bunch of people up, but not a lot of focus on customer retention. And because so much focus is on the front end, you don't have a very consistent customer experience. Some people might be really successful. Some people might not even, they might sign up because there was a great promotion, but they might not ever get around to using it. So that's not a very positive customer experience at all. They probably don't even remember that they subscribed to the product or service in the first place. So what you end up having in that first stage, and people don't typically stay in this stage for very long, but it definitely does exist, is that you have an excessively high churn amount, oftentimes outpacing the number of new subscribers, and certainly outpacing the retention that you might see, because there's just no plan in place to retain customers and no plan to ensure that they've got a great customer experience. So from a systems perspective, you've got disparate customer data stores, maybe you've got legacy financial systems that you're running this business on, but really nothing that's designed for a subscription type business. So as companies look to try to move those Wild West experiences onto the next stage, which we call opportunistic, and I think a little bit more descriptive word there is differentiated. We see companies thinking, how can we, bring people in maybe in a more efficient way? So we're still focused on customer growth, but is there a way that we can do that in a lower touch way than in the past? Maybe there's self-service mechanisms we put into place. But also, how can we improve the customer experience by making our offer better, making what we can provide to them that much better? So there's a lot of focus on, we've got this service, let's improve it, let's make it really convenient for people, let's have a whole range of options that they'd ever need for this particular experience, let's add some element of coolness into the service. And the customer experience in that case really hinges on the individual's perception of the offering. I could find it to be great, someone else could find it to be terrible, and there's not a lot of management in there in terms of having something for those both of those expectations, because the focus is really on let's build this differentiated service. So you can have a business outcome where recurring revenue is still on the rise, but you still have this higher unpredictable churn amount. So moving up the scale to something that's a bit more repeatable, we see companies starting to focus on customer loyalty. They're getting it, like, hey, we're bringing people in. We've got this really cool or convenient or better product and service, and we see that people are signing up, but we need to figure out how to keep them on. We want to focus on bringing the right customers in. We want to keep them. And then also we want to reward that loyalty, but we also want to give them a way to express that loyalty. So social avenues, how do we get them to talk about their experience, to bring other folks on board? And from a systems perspective, you start to see people do more around subscription-oriented billing at this point in time. So billing that can do a much better job of presenting usage to the customer. From a pricing and packaging perspective, you start to see people moving away from freemium type offerings at this tier. They're trying to cut down the noise, to cut down the churn. They want to bring the right customers in, the customers that they think that they can demonstrate value to. And oftentimes those are paying customers. People who are paying money for a product and service are, they've got a vested interest in making sure that they see value out of that, and they're much less likely to churn away than those that come in at a free level. So we're seeing recurring revenue increase. We're seeing churn decrease. The next stage up is managed. And here it's, how can we get customers to realize value quickly and then demonstrate this back to customers? So you're starting to track usage and present detailed usage reports. You've got much more integration between your customer experience initiatives and systems, your financial systems, your billing, your customer support systems. What can we do holistically to make our customers happier, to get them to be happier quickly, to demonstrate that value, and then also give us an opportunity to look into upsell and cross-sell types of offers where they make sense. We've got all this information about the customers now because of all the systems integration we've done, because of the third-party systems that we've been able to acquire that help us with this. How can we take this information and then focus on our profit as well as our growth and get some better visibility into key metrics that will allow us to make better decisions? Now, this final stage of subscription business model overview, and I've presented this to people and have gotten the reaction that this should be called nirvana because it doesn't exist in many, many cases. But the idea of this customer lifecycle optimization, and my point here is let's give everybody something that they can look to strive for regardless of where they are in their subscription journey. And the idea is, how can we put processes, systems, build our culture around building and deepening customer relationships so that we have a good idea what that customer is going to do before they even make a purchase all the way through renewal. How can we predict what might be valuable to them? How can we help them find the value? How can we then demonstrate that value back to them and get them to deepen that relationship with us over time? And from a metrics perspective, everyone looks at different metrics with their subscription businesses, and there's some great information out there in terms of what are some of the key metrics to look at. But one of the things that we see really mature companies looking at is this idea of customer lifetime value and customer acquisition, sales and marketing costs as well, and looking at that from the perspective of the customer acquisition. So this somewhere lifetime value is 3 to 4 the cost of the customer acquisition. That might be the exact number. It might be a different number, but the idea is that you have these customer lifetime value numbers that you can almost predict from the moment that you have an interaction with that customer through renewal and beyond. So that's the model. Like I said, there are a lot of details behind that, to kind of summarize the guidance that I might give to everyone, regardless of where they are per stage, is a little tricky, but I will give you kind of what we're thinking that companies can look to do in the next 6 months, 6 to 18 months, and 18 to 36 months. Some of these points you may already have started to work on. You may have already accomplished these, or you might not have thought about them. So just kind of give you a sense of what we're advising companies to do as they really start to supercharge their subscription models or thinking about how to make them better. I think the one piece is reflecting on the experience provided by your offering. How does your offering make your customers feel? And if you think back on your own consumer experiences with subscription offerings, I can think of maybe my top 3 or top 4 subscription offerings and how they've made me feel. Things that I have to tell other people about. They're so great, or they're so innovative, or isn't this, it was so helpful to me. It really changed the way that I did something. That's the type of thing that you want your customers to want to do. You want them to talk about what you're providing. It's got to be different. It's got to be something they feel good about and something they'd like to tell their friends about to help them out. I think the other piece, and why is that important, and you'll see kind of going forward, but the idea of price and experience. A lot of times with people with their subscription offerings, as they evolve over time, they focus a lot on pricing and packaging. And I'm a pricing and packaging person, and I totally get that. But it's really easy to change pricing and packaging. It's not that easy to change experience. And price experience have to be so closely connected within these businesses. So starting with your experience first and then thinking through pricing and packaging makes so much more sense. I think the other piece is recognizing that not all subscription companies are going to execute on the business model in the exact same way. And relationships evolve over time, and so will your business model. I think a lot of times when people are trying to improve their approaches, they look around at the market, they look at what other companies are doing, they look at maybe what their customers are asking for, they look at the competition. These models, the idea is that they look fairly simple from the outside, but from the inside, they're very, very complex. And recognizing that one of the most important elements that you need to have within your approach is flexibility. You have to have the flexibility to change, to adapt, to be agile, and it's important to make sure that your systems, your processes, your culture support that. Next 6 to 18 months, making sure these key systems are subscription enabled. So what does that mean? Visibility, agility, and control. You need to be able to react quickly with these businesses. And frankly, a lot of the systems designed for traditional upfront product sale oriented companies don't allow you to react fast in a subscription type of a paradigm at all, and often involve many manual processes, which obviously add time, possibilities for error. So making sure that these systems are actually going to adapt is really important. And I do a lot of calls and questions around how much is this going to cost, how much time should I spend, a lot of that depends where you're coming from, but it is an important transition to start to make. And then again, look at this connection between your pricing, packaging, and customer experience. Then moving even forward and farther into future, integrating the people, process, and systems that support pricing and customer relationships and experiences. I could give lots of examples, but time here is short on the importance of doing that. And one of the things that's really important to do is that these people, processes, and systems are not only internal systems, they're also partner systems. They're also shipping systems. If your service is to rent formal gowns to people, and they typically rent them for an event, but UPS does not ship them the gown until 2 days after the event, which is something that actually happened to me this past weekend, the experience of the customer is not going to be very positive. Now, the gown company had really no control over UPS, but that had a huge impact on the customer experience and the satisfaction of actually a first-time customer. So looking at the overall picture from the customer perspective is really important. And what do you do in the case where there's a variable that you can't control, but that impacts customer experience? This particular company did not have a very good process for handling that situation, and that's important to do. And I think also, this dual focus on both deepening relationships with existing customers as well as expanding the base of new subscribers. Now, my background is not in finance, and I know we have other speakers on the phone on the conference that are, but it's an important balancing act, or not so much an act, but really it's a very scientific process that financial folks have to kind of balance customer acquisition and growth with profit expectations with other places that they spend. Obviously profits can look really good if you stop spending on growth, but then you don't have growth, and that's really important as well. So, fine-tuning that part of your business is really important. So my contact information here, I'm also available after the discussion for questions and answers, and I am going to now turn it over to Todd. Thank you.
Just making sure I'm off mute. Can everyone hear me? Yes, so. Okay. So this is Todd Graber from Innovest.
You sound great, Todd.
Okay, very good. Just wanted to make sure. Amy, that was wonderful. And I kind of looking at your spectrum of the subscription business, and I kind of trying to see where Innovest fell on that spectrum, and I'd say, yeah, the optimized would be pretty difficult. So I'd have to say for our business, we'd be somewhere in that, hopefully a little bit right to the managed business. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Innovest right now. So right here. There we go. Okay. So thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure, and hope everyone is doing well. Just want to give a quick summary of Innovest Systems, who we are, what we do. Then I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that we've had as a subscription-based business and how we've overcome some of those problems. So very quickly, what do we do at Innovest? We are a wealth management platform. We provide a SaaS-based, so software as a service-based platform, primarily to banks, broker-dealers, and the entire wealth management industry. In a nutshell, we help our clients acquire assets, invest their assets, manage their assets, and then report on their assets. And it's just to draw a quick comparison, because a lot of the people, this is a NetSuite-based call. We are not far off from what NetSuite does. For NetSuite is, an ERP and a technology company for, the world. We are a subset. We are the ERP for wealth management companies. So our flagship product, which kind of would fall in this slide under manage, is we do the portfolio and trust accounting for, again, banks, broker-dealers, and wealth managers. So what's interesting, and when we talk about subscriptions, is that we don't have hundreds and hundreds of customers. We have, unfortunately, a painfully slow sales cycle. Could be 6 months to a year, but we may only have, if we bring on 5 to 10 new customers a year, that's a banner year, but our transaction volume is low, but the size of the customers that we bring on are large. Because if you think about it, it's trust banks, and be it a regional bank, but they're quite large. So let me talk a little bit about. Let's see if I can get this. Having a bit of problem with forwarding the slide. Okay, here we go. So let me tell you a little bit about Innovest and the revenue streams in Innovest and why we are a subscription-based business. So what we have is, for our services, is we will charge a base fee to be on our SaaS-based platform, okay? And that base fee will differ depending on the size of the entity, many different things. So we will charge the base fee on a monthly basis, but what makes, and when I get through to talk about all the different revenue streams we have, because this slide actually depicts only about a third of our business, you'll see that recurring revenue models and subscription-based models can be very complex. And then I'll get to how NetSuite helps us out with this. So we'll charge a base fee, but then we also will charge, depending on the assets that are sitting on our platform, we will charge a variable-based fee. This could be based on either the assets or the number of accounts. And to make things complex, we have a tiered model. So we'll have a base fee. Then if, let's say, for the first $1 billion of assets are included in the base fee, the next 200 million are at half a basis point. The next 200 after that are a quarter basis point. So if you think about, and again, I'm now more specific on the financial side, trying to bill and figure out your revenue stream from these customers, there's a lot involved. You have to look at the growth of your potential customers. You want the customers to grow with you on your platform. But of course, it gets more increasingly complex as when you go the billing. We also have, and Amy talked about this, is we have partnered with many channel partners to make our offering as seamless as possible. So just kind of like a NetSuite integrates with a Salesforce or a T&E processing system, we've done the same. So we have many partners, and what happens is we will take, for instance, if you're on our platform and you have securities on the platform, of course you would like to have real-time pricing of those, of your securities on the platform. You'd like to have reporting at month end. So we partner with an R. Donnelley for reporting, a pricing engine for real-time data. And what we do is we're going to be passing those services through on our bills to our customers. And this can get very complex. Some of the pass-through costs can be done at cost. Some of them might have a markup. Each customer is slightly different. The tiering of the asset-based fees are different for our customers. So as you can imagine, the billing and kind of looking at each individual customer is quite challenging. And so at Innovest, came to the company about 2.5 years ago. We recently went through an acquisition, a California-based acquisition, and we're sitting there on QuickBooks about 2 years ago, and we had a bunch of challenges that we faced after this acquisition. We had 2 different accounting systems. We were working on QuickBooks, and our California-based subsidiary was on Sage. We had 4 or 5 different types of revenue streams to account for. It wasn't easy. Our finance departments and kind of our organization was geographically separated, obviously between the East and West Coast. And we were able to use a QuickBooks when you had 1 subsidiary, but as we brought on a 2nd subsidiary and then this year a 3rd subsidiary, if we were still working in QuickBooks environment, we'd be forced to consolidate our books and records and perform our management reporting in Excel. I'm just going to move to the next slide. So, as you can imagine, between Innovest in New York and our California subsidiary, we had many challenges that we're facing using QuickBooks. We had an array of Excel and manual processes that we had to improve, or else we wouldn't be able to grow the business. So at the time, I said, well, I definitely need something that, of course, that we can all access 24/7. Today, the workforce, people work at home, people are traveling. So we said we wanted we are a SaaS-based, Innovest is a SaaS-based organization. I said, in my accounting platform, we would like a SaaS-based platform as well. So we looked to NetSuite, and we partnered with NetSuite back about a year ago. We've been live for about 10 months. What we were looking for, as I said, SaaS-based cloud platform, and we really needed a billing module that would help us or assist us with the intricate billing that we had. So, for instance, we didn't have to go through Excel. We didn't want to have to go through Excel and figure out the 3 or 4 different tiers of the assets on our system for each of our clients. We wanted to be able to pass through our costs without, seamlessly, without having to, again, do all of this work outside in Excel. Another great advantage, another great thing that we were looking for was visibility across the entire organization, all our KPIs, our metrics, and our financials. Beforehand, if we're looking, we'd have to look at each individual business, be it in QuickBooks or Sage, have to bring it together into Excel to do any type of being able to view the business. We were obviously looking for a platform that could bring that all together. And let's move slides again. So what were the keys to success for Innovest? Basically in this subscription recurring-based model. And really, partnering with NetSuite was a huge win for us, and really have come a long way. The things that are fantastic is, again, the availability, the ability of information to be able to see across an entire entity, to be able to upload your usage information into a platform and be able to produce bills where each individual customer, again, because each of our customers is very different, that we can lock in subscription rates and rate plans per customer and be able to, push a button and push out our invoicing in a very timely manner. Again, this helps with getting the bills out. We're able to do it 100% electronically today. We used to send them out via mail. Today, it's all done, through NetSuite. We went to a total paperless environment, we don't cut checks anymore. Our invoices go out. We were able to take we have 20 to 30 people traveling around the United States, be it sales or implementations of our platform. We were able to have we happen to use Concur travel and entertainment platform, which seamlessly integrated with NetSuite. We were able to bring in all the travel and entertainment information where people were able to take pictures of receipts from the telephones and bring it right into the system. Also, you have things, another thing for billing and customer interaction is that we have, as I mentioned, just like when we went live on NetSuite, we will have integrations with our customer, implementations that could go 6 months long. So we have people traveling and spending P&E that we have to bill through. So what we could do in the system, either via, if we receive a bill or receive a travel and entertainment report, we can just click on a button and have it billable to a certain client within the system. So again, when we go at the month end, you can see when we pull up when we're ready to invoice, we see, hey, that there's travel and entertainment to be billed to a particular customer, which really makes things, much easier for us. We have a much easier time now to see that, when we talked about, Amy talked about acquisition costs, sales acquisition costs, and then, your total contract value or the opportunity over time. Now, I will say, in our business, one of the negatives of being in a business such as Innovest is that the sales cycle could be 6 to 12 months to find the customer, to bring the customer online. But on the flip side, our retention is approaching 100%, because just like when you go live on a system like NetSuite, it's a big effort, and if people are happy with what we provide, which is an entire ecosystem for trust and wealth management platforms, then our contracts happen to be basically 5 years long, and the majority of the time the customers will re-up for several years at a time. So, keys to success for Innovest, as we're saying here, we are a technology company, but we were not utilizing the full technology in our practices. So really coming on NetSuite, which is a full ERP, it helped us incredibly. I'll give one last example. Amy talked about kind of upselling and keeping your customers happy. So our customers are on a system will always look for slight customizations or enhancements. So we will do professional services work for a bunch of our customers. Before we were on NetSuite, we would have had a very tough time in many Excel spreadsheets trying to keep track of, we might have 50 professional service projects going on at once, and trying to keep track of billing them versus recognizing the revenue on those contracts was very difficult. So within NetSuite, what we're able to do is if we have 40 or 50 clients, we're able to create a project underneath those clients when we're doing professional service work. We're able to separate the billing from the revenue recognition. And it's amazing how the system is able to, it's seamless, and we do not require Excel spreadsheets anymore for this. So overall, while the model has its advantages and disadvantages, very difficult in ways as far as finance to pull all the pieces together, get the billing, get all the correct information to the customers. But once you have it down and you have a 5-year relationship, and as Amy mentioned, building that relationship, it is not a one-stop sale. It is a relationship for 5 to 7 to 9 years. And as the CFO, we have to make sure that not only are they receiving great service from our entire organization, but also from the financial organization as well. I think I will leave it at that, so we leave time for questions, and I'll hand it over to Kimberly.
Thank you, Todd. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences at Innovest. And now I'm going to move into the portion of the session where I'm going to share some of our own best practices that NetSuite has used over the years to fuel our own recurring revenue growth. Very quickly, in case you're not familiar with NetSuite, we are the largest and only publicly traded SaaS company providing a suite of solutions designed to run your business. We continue to experience tremendous growth and momentum in both North America and abroad. And for 3 years running, NetSuite has been named the fastest growing financial management system vendor according to market share research by Gartner. We're also the #1 choice for SaaS companies who are looking to automate and drive efficiency around their critical business processes. At the same time, a large number of companies that operate in the software space that operate with a hybrid model, and by hybrid model I mean they have a traditional one-time purchase scenario with their subscription, as well as maybe they've added a hosted offering that they're selling on a subscription basis. They have chosen NetSuite as their back office foundation as well. And we've experienced ourselves firsthand the challenges that come from scaling a recurring revenue business from startup to industry leader with an annual revenue run rate of over $500 million. So with that, I'm really delighted to share what I'm going to call 5 keys to success that are based on our own best practices for running a recurring revenue business. The number one tenet in the world of recurring revenue is recognizing that flexibility is absolutely critical to survival. It's also critical to growth. It's simply not enough to enable your business to operate how you want to run it today. The way you price, package, and sell your service, you also have to have the ability to think about, 5 years, 10 years down the road, how do you want to price and package your offering? And what's going to happen in the future is just as critical as how it is to run your business today. So I'm going to use a quick example here to illustrate this point. This is a screenshot that I took a few years ago, actually. It shows pricing plans at the time for a very well-known SaaS company. At that time, they had 2 major pricing plans, which you see here. Both of these plans have a recurring monthly fee associated with them, and both have specific features and functionality that are included in that plan. Interestingly enough, back then when I took the screenshot, there were no usage or variable components in either of their plans. Another interesting thing to note is that for their low-end plan, they have a free trial. And trials are great. They are typically run for a predefined period of time. They typically provide the user with out-of-the-box functionality. And free trials are very, very popular when the application being sold is targeted to either a consumer or a small business. And if you'll notice on their higher end plan here, they have what they're calling a free pilot. And typically a pilot is a little bit different than a trial. It usually involves more interaction between the vendor and the user. Pilots tend to have much higher conversion rates because of that interaction. The point here that I'm trying to make is that each of these plans have a different way for you to get started. And most likely, when the user on either of these plans actually converts to a paying customer, there's typically going to be a one-time charge associated. It could be an implementation fee of some sort, or maybe it's professional services related. Now, so this is a few years back, and at this point in time, there's already a large number of variables that this company has to take into account when running their business. Not only do they have to deal with enabling these pricing plans to support their go-to-market efforts, they also have to be able to manage, provision, bill, recognize revenue, and support these offerings. And at a minimum, they also have to take into account how they're going to later upsell their customers to the enterprise plan if they came in on the low end. Or, of course, they're going to have to think what might happen if I need to manage a downsell. Maybe someone came in with the enterprise plan, they want to move down to professional. So the seeds of complexity are well sown already, and it's looking to be a bumper crop. So let's fast forward to this company today. Again, same company. Today they have 4 pricing plans, and these plans are more narrowly focused on specific segments of the market they're no doubt looking to penetrate. There's a lot more components. I just want to zero in on a couple of things that are quite different. They now have a variable component to their plan that's tied to one specific feature that's included, and that specific feature has a variable component to it. So in a short period of time, they've already added another layer of complexity, and that has grown significantly. Now let's look at another major change they've made, and that's here with their enterprise plan, which, according to what you see on their website, is highly customized offering. So again, this is another dimension of complexity that has to be managed across both the front office and back office for this organization. And here, I'm just starting with one example. I could have chosen, say, an example where I looked at a traditional on-premise software provider who then has later elected to add a hosted product offering that they make available on a subscription basis. So bam, if I had taken that single decision by that traditional company to have a subscription product creates another large set of variables that the business has to manage. They have to track, they have to report on this and analyze it. So the bottom line, regardless of what type of example I started with, the important thing to take away from this key to success is the importance of laying in place a front office and back office foundation that is inherently flexible, one that can be configured, customized easily without draining all of your IT resources. So let's move on to the second key. Another key for a recurring revenue business is to understand that the booking or the initial sale is really just the beginning. It's the beginning of a long journey that you're going to have with this customer. And throughout that journey and the relationship, there are going to be a lot of changes. The customer will want to add more users. They'll want to upgrade to a different product plan. Maybe they'll want to add a new module. Not to mention, of course, the opposite things that take place when maybe they need to scale back with their number of users. Maybe they aren't going to renew, something like that. Your approach to enabling your customers to make these changes easily will have a profound impact on your business. What you see here is a very simple example. If you look on the left-hand side of the screen, I've got an example of, this is kind of an old school way that maybe people were doing this, where upgrades and upsells are treated as separate events. So here we have on the left an initial sale. They then added some additional users. Then that same customer purchased an extra module. And how that company was managing it before basically resulted in 3 separate points of renewal with a customer. That translates to more work for finance, more work for sales, more work for the client or account management team, and more work for the customer as well. You can contrast that with the scenario on the right, where there is just 1 renewal per customer, and that renewal takes into account all of the previous or the subsequent activity that has taken place after the initial sale. This approach simplifies the back office work tremendously and ensures that you can focus your client management and everyone else at the company on getting that renewal and keeping that customer happy. At NetSuite, we operate with this coterminous scenario that I've just described. And we found that this approach is one of the biggest improvements that any organization can make to position themselves to maximize renewal efficiency and scale. So now I'd like to move into the third key, and that is making sure that you understand the value of each customer. There are a lot of different things that go into maybe assigning value to a customer. A lot of different variables that can be taken into account. I mean, obviously, initially, you think about the revenue being generated. How much is this customer paying me? And that's obviously a great place to start. But there's other areas that should probably be taken a look at, and I've got some here that might make sense for you in the audience, some of these at least. A lot of them fall into the category of how sticky is this customer to my business. There you can take a look at things like product usage patterns, how long they've been a customer, what's their tenure using the product, have they added additional modules perhaps, even some things that might be kind of a leading indicator that things aren't going well. So maybe looking at how many cases they have open. So all of these types of information that is needed to know about your business can help you identify kind of leading indicators for whether a customer is going to renew or whether you might be at risk of losing them. There's some other things that I have up here on this slide that would maybe take into account how strategic a particular customer might be. And this is something that you should also take into account as well. Maybe they're a reference customer, and that would maybe increase their strategic value to you. Maybe they are a customer that's in a new vertical that you're actively trying to penetrate. Perhaps they've adopted your latest product, and you're trying to really kind of push that product. Or maybe they're a division of a larger organization, and that's an organization that you're looking to establish a foothold in. So again, these are a lot of different variables that when you combine these, you can start to look at them cohesively and start to assign a value to your customer. But in order to do that, you have to have the ability to capture, report on, and quickly drill down into this level of detail in your business. And if you can't do that, then you won't be able to truly identify which sets of customers are more valuable to your organization and which maybe aren't. you might actually miss some customers that you might run the risk of losing. So, no matter what you want to call it, a holistic view of the customer, a 360-degree view of the customer, it's absolutely critical because keeping that customer is number one key to keeping that annuity coming in on a regular basis and making sure that you're growing recurring revenue. Moving on to the fourth key to success, and that is focus on and measuring the right metrics. In a subscription business like NetSuite, one of the key metrics we closely watch is annual recurring revenue. We're very much focused on ARR. There are some other things up here that are also very, very important. Lifetime value, that's a long-term view of the customer. Very important to have a pulse of that. The cost that it takes to acquire that customer is very, very important as well. You also want to stay focused on bookings and how much new revenue is being generated. Conversion, especially if you're offering a free trial, very, very important as well. And retention is also important. I say focus on retention rather than churn because retention is a positive aspect to your business while churn is a negative. So keeping retention up is a key thing to focus on as well. I want to talk just a little bit more detail about the two metrics that you see in the lower right-hand side of your screen. Because in a SaaS model, you're spending a lot of money to acquire what we think of here at NetSuite as for our finance team, saying, well, you're going to acquire a customer annuity. So because you're acquiring annuity, it makes a lot more sense to spend more money to acquire that customer than it would, say, maybe with a customer that was just going to be a one-time sale. So for SaaS companies, the biggest expenditure in the P&L becomes the sales and marketing expense. So here are just two quick metrics that we use at NetSuite to determine this. The first, gross sales and marketing efficiency, answers a question, how much sales and marketing expense do I have to spend to get an additional $1 of bookings? The second metric that we look at, and this is a metric that you have to measure in arrears, is how much sales and marketing expense did it take for me to acquire an additional incremental dollar of revenue? So those are two things that you might want to think about. And then last, the final key I'll just touch briefly on is automating the end-to-end process for your recurring revenue engine is very, very critical. And I would say this continues to be a key ingredient to our success at NetSuite. Things like billing your customer, being able to recognize that revenue, being able to upsell and cross-sell and drive renewals, and then over time, manage pricing and kind of that continuous customer lifecycle management that both Amy and Todd talked about as well. This is just absolutely critical. Here at NetSuite, we run the business on NetSuite, which means that we have this tight end-to-end automation that I've just described, and we pair it with a 360-degree view of the customer that I had on the previous screen. Again, this approach has been absolutely critical to our success, and we routinely share our own best practices with our customers, both at the macro level, which I've just done here, as well as at more granular levels as needed when we're interacting with our customers. So with that, we just have a couple of minutes left for questions. And we do have some questions that have come in. I think we can maybe get to two of them. The first question is actually for Amy. And Amy, that question is, it seems like we've been stuck at the opportunistic stage for some time now. What are a couple of things that a company looking to move to the repeatable stage should focus on?
And I think looking at your pricing approach and making sure that the metrics are clear and simple to understand. So you gave Kim some great examples of some different pricing approaches. The easier you can make it for people to understand what they might be getting, the more likely you are to have people that go into a relationship with clear expectations and then will ultimately be satisfied with that. So that's one step. I think also looking around structuring some pricing governance. So another pricing piece, instituting some controls over offers that are positioned or that might position to control maybe some rogue pricing behaviors. In some companies I've heard, we really didn't have any governance, and any person could really give any discount to any customer at any given time without any thought as to some methodology around that. So I think simplifying and clarifying your pricing and your packaging, also putting some governance in place. Those are just a few pieces. Obviously there are a number of different things that companies can do, but on the pricing end, those are a few suggestions.
Thanks, Amy. I think we have time for just one last question, and someone was asking me to clarify or give more examples about what I mean by sticky customers versus non-sticky customers. Let me give another example, again, tying it back to our own experience here at NetSuite growing the business. We're fortunate that we sell a very sticky product. We sell, ERP, financial, CRM systems that are complex, and once people put them in, they're not likely to take them out. You can equate it to like heart surgery versus knee surgery if you're looking at, just to use kind of a medical metaphor there. However, there was a point in time a while back in our history where we sold our product to what I would consider to be non-sticky customers, and that was very, very small businesses. And through no fault of their own, just one of the characteristics of selling to the small business space is that a large number of small businesses go out of business. So even though they loved the product and were signing up, as those businesses didn't pan out, they would churn off of NetSuite, and therefore that makes them a non-sticky customer. And we've shifted. We still sell to a lot of fast-growing, rapid startups in the mid-market and into the enterprise space. But that's just an example of kind of our own experience, what I would consider to be a sticky customer versus maybe a non-sticky customer. So with that, we've reached our allotted time, and there were some questions that came in that we didn't get to, but we've captured those, and you will be hearing back from us. And we'll get those questions answered for you. I'd like to thank both Todd and Amy for their time today and expertise, as well as our audience. We really appreciate it, and hopefully everyone will have a nice day. Thank you.
Take care.